My name is Evelyn Grace. I'm 60 years old. And I will tell you something I've never told anyone before. When people look at me today, they see nothing more than an old woman with tired eyes and shaky hands, sitting quietly by a window. They think my life has been ordinary, uneventful, and simple. But if you could peel back the silence, you would find a story soaked in sweat, betrayal, and secrets that could break even the strongest heart. I wasn't always this fragile. Once, I was the backbone of a rising empire. Every late night I spent awake, every idea I crafted, every sacrifice I made, all of it turned a struggling family business into a fortune worth millions. They celebrated those millions in profit. They raised their glasses, cut their cakes, and bathed in the applause of the world. But me, I was invisible. My name was never mentioned, my face never remembered. Yes, I was the architect behind it all. The brain, the builder, the forgotten shadow. So why am I telling you this now? Why, after decades of silence, am I ready to reveal the truth? Because some betrayals don't die with time. They only grow louder inside your chest. And mine has been screaming for 60 years. My name is Evelyn Grace. I am 60 years old, and this is the truth that has lived inside me like a ghost. When I was a young woman, life had not been kind. My parents left me more scars than love. My father drank until his voice turned cruel. And my mother faded into a shadow that barely spoke. I grew up in a house that taught me hunger, not hope. People said I would end up just like them, broken and forgotten. But deep down, I swore I wouldn't. I told myself I would carve a place in this world where I mattered. That promise led me to the Hendersons. They owned a small grocery store at the edge of town. Dusty windows, empty shelves, and debts stacked higher than the bread boxes. The Henderson family was desperate, and I was desperate too. That is how I first met Michael Henderson, the eldest son. He had a confidence that could charm anyone, a smile that convinced me I was finally worth something. He said, "Evelyn, we need someone like you. Together, we can build something great." I wanted to believe him. I needed to, at first. It was simple work. I organized their records, cleaned up the accounting, arranged the shelves in ways that drew more customers. Small things, really. But then I began to see patterns no one else noticed. I sketched new ways to track sales, planned promotions, convinced suppliers to trust us when no one else would. Slowly, profits trickled in, and the Hendersons began to breathe again. Michael would pat my shoulder, whispering, "You're brilliant, Evelyn. You'll always be part of this family." Those words, they kept me alive. 5 years later, that dusty grocery store wasn't just a store anymore. It had multiplied into branches across town. We were no longer counting pennies. We were counting millions. People looked at the Hendersons with admiration, calling them geniuses, visionaries, business leaders. And me. I was always there, standing just behind them, smiling politely while my chest ached for recognition. Every success they celebrated was my idea. Every problem they solved, I had untangled before anyone else even understood it. But the spotlight never touched me. It belonged only to Michael and his family. Still, I stayed. Why? Because I wanted to believe that love and loyalty would matter more than applause. Because Michael's promises whispered in my heart, "One day, Evelyn, they'll all know the truth." But the truth was, the more the empire grew, the smaller my name became. I started to notice how people in meetings referred to me as the assistant, how reporters wrote about Michael's brilliant leadership, how even in family gatherings, I was just that girl who helps out. And yet, I couldn't walk away. I had poured my youth, my blood, and my soul into this empire. Walking away would mean admitting I had been used. And sometimes, it's easier to live in denial than face betrayal. The real fracture came on the night of the 10th anniversary gala. I remember the chandeliers, the gold curtains, the endless sound of glasses clinking. Michael stood on the stage, tall and shining in his tuxedo, delivering a speech that had the whole room clapping like thunder. He thanked his parents, his siblings, his investors, even the suppliers. My heart pounded. Surely, tonight he would say my name. Surely, after 10 years of sacrifice, I would finally be seen. Michael's eyes found mine in the crowd. For a second, I felt everything stop. I held my breath, waiting, ready to hear my name echo in that hall. But then, he smiled, and he walked off the stage. The applause roared around me, but inside I heard nothing. My hands clapped on their own, trembling, betraying me. And in that moment, I understood something far worse than being forgotten. I wasn't forgotten. I was deliberately erased. After that night, the gala where my name disappeared into silence, something inside me cracked. I smiled for the cameras, I shook hands with guests, but in my chest, there was only emptiness. That emptiness would grow into something darker. Something I could no longer ignore. Michael came to me afterward, his arm slipping around my shoulder like nothing had happened. "You were wonderful tonight, Evelyn," he said, as if I had stood on that stage beside him. But I hadn't. I was still in the shadows. Always in the shadows. I asked him, "Michael, why didn't you mention me?" He laughed lightly, as though I'd told a joke. "Evelyn, the world doesn't need to know everything. What matters is, we know. You and me. That's enough." But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. For years, I had buried my pride under loyalty, convincing myself that family came before recognition. But loyalty means nothing when it's only one. And slowly, I began to see what I had been too blind to notice. The Hendersons didn't see me as family. They saw me as a tool. I tested it. I stopped working late into the night. I let Michael handle some of the numbers without me. Within weeks, the business stumbled. Orders were delayed. Profits dipped. Mistakes piled up. And suddenly, Michael was at my door, begging me to come back, to fix everything. I fixed it, of course, because part of me still wanted to believe that if I proved myself enough, they would finally acknowledge me. But the cycle repeated again and again. Disaster without me. Triumph with me, and every triumph signed under Michael's name. The weight of silence grew unbearable. There were whispers. Though, people inside the company began to notice. A clerk named Sarah once pulled me aside, her voice trembling. "Ms. Grace, I know it's you. You're the one who makes all this happen, aren't you?" I smiled faintly, but before I could answer, Michael's voice cut through the hallway. Sarah turned pale, apologized, and rushed away. From that day, she never spoke to me again. Fear had its grip on everyone. That's when I realized, it wasn't just Michael's ego. It was a carefully crafted plan. The Henderson family had built an empire on my mind, but they had built a story without my name. A story they could sell. One that erased me completely. And I let them. For years, I let them. One night I confronted Michael again. "How long do you think I can live like this?" I asked. In silence, invisible, he leaned closer, his smile sharp. "Evelyn, you should be grateful. You have more than most people ever dream of. You're part of us. Isn't that enough?" Grateful. The word stung like acid. Grateful for being used. For being erased. For giving away my life while someone else collected the applause. But I stayed. Because I had nothing else. No family of my own. No children. No husband. My whole identity had become Henderson Enterprises. Without it, who was I? And then came the moment that shattered the last of my illusions. We had secured a massive contract. The deal that would turn the company into a national giant. It was my design, my pitch, my endless nights of planning that made it possible. The deal was signed, sealed, and the Hendersons prepared a press conference to announce it. I sat in the front row. My heart daring to hope, maybe this time, maybe at last, they couldn't deny my role. The cameras flashed, the microphones buzzed, and Michael stood before the world. He smiled that familiar smile, and then he said words I will never forget. "This achievement belongs to my family alone. Henderson blood runs through every brick of this empire. We built it, we own it, and we will carry it into the future." No mention of me, not a single syllable. The reporters clapped, the investors cheered. And I sat there, my hands frozen in my lap, feeling like the air had been sucked from the room. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't invisible. I was being erased on purpose, and if I didn't act soon, they would erase me forever. After that press conference, something in me finally broke. I wasn't just ignored, I was deliberately erased. The applause ringing in my ears felt like knives, each cheer slicing away what little dignity I had left. I walked out of that hall before the speeches ended, my chest pounding, my palms cold. For weeks, I lived in silence. I didn't return Michael's calls, didn't show up at the office, didn't lift a finger to save them when their numbers started slipping again. Instead, I spent my time going through old files, contracts, papers, everything I had ever worked on. The deeper I dug, the clearer it became. The Hendersons had been preparing to push me out for years. They had rewritten contracts, removing my signature. They had reassigned projects under different managers' names. And worst of all, they had changed company records so that legally, I no longer appeared as a partner or contributor. I wasn't just being hidden from the public, I was being scrubbed from history. One night, as I pored over another stack of documents, I found something that made my blood run cold. A ledger. Pages of transactions that didn't add up. Hidden accounts, secret transfers, money moved offshore. The Hendersons weren't just greedy, they were laundering millions. That's when I realized. This was why I couldn't exist in their story. A clean empire needs no ghosts. If I was remembered, I could speak. If I spoke, I could destroy them. The thought shook me. For years, I had told myself I stayed because I had nowhere else to go, but the truth was, I stayed because I still wanted to belong. And now, I understood, I was never meant to belong. I was meant to be erased the moment I became inconvenient. I confronted Michael one last time. I cornered him in his office, the city lights burning behind him. I slammed the ledger on his desk. "Do you think I'm blind?" I demanded. "Do you think I don't see what you've been doing?" He didn't even flinch. He leaned back in his chair, calm as ever. "You've dug too deep, Evelyn. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. If you're smart, you'll walk away. Walk away from 30 years of my life, from the empire I built with my own hands, from my blood, my bones, my soul." I shook my head, trembling. "You used me? You stole my life. And now you want me to disappear quietly?" His smile was thin, dangerous. "Disappear, or be disappeared. It's your choice." For the first time in my life, I felt fear, not the kind that keeps you awake at night, but the kind that makes your heart stop in your chest. He wasn't making a metaphor, he was making a threat. That night, I locked every door, checked every window, and sat awake until dawn. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every shadow outside felt like it was moving. Every sound felt like a warning. I had a choice: to stay silent and let them erase me, or to speak and risk losing everything, including my life. And then, just as I was deciding what to do, I received a letter. No name, no return addressed. Just a plain envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a single line, typed neatly on white paper. "I know what they did to you. Meet me tomorrow, midnight, by the old railway station." My breath caught in my throat. Someone else knew. Someone had been watching. But was it a lifeline? Or a trap? I stared at that letter all night, the words burning into my mind. "I know what they did to you. Meet me tomorrow, midnight, by the old railway station." It could have been a lifeline, but it could also have been the end of me. Still, something inside told me I couldn't ignore it. When you've been erased, when your very existence is being stripped away, even the faintest chance of truth feels like oxygen. At midnight, I walked to the station. The place was abandoned years ago, rust eating through the rails, the air thick with dampness and echoes. My footsteps felt too loud. I kept looking over my shoulder, convinced Michael's men were already there, waiting to silence me. Then I saw her, a figure leaning against a broken pillar, the glow of a cigarette cutting through the dark. As I approached, she dropped it to the ground and stepped forward. Her name was Anna Reed. She was younger than me, maybe in her 40s, but her eyes told a story of someone who'd seen too much. She spoke quickly, urgently, as if every second was borrowed. "Evelyn Grace," she said, "I've been following you for a long time, and I know the Hendersons destroyed you." My chest tightened. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" She pulled a folder from her coat and handed it to me. Inside were photographs, bank records, files that matched the very ledger I had found. Only this time, there was more. Names of politicians, businessmen, overseas accounts, all tied to the Hendersons. "They're dirty, Evelyn," she whispered, "and they're dangerous. You're not the only one they've used. I lost someone because of them." Her voice cracked as she said it, but she didn't explain. Instead, she looked straight into my eyes. "But you're the key. You built their empire. You know their secrets. With you, I can bring them down." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but a lifetime of betrayal had made me cautious. "Why now? Why me?" I asked. She smiled bitterly. "Because you're the ghost they can't bury. And because, Evelyn, they've already marked you. If you don't fight back, you won't live long enough to regret it." The words chilled me. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was real. For weeks, Anna and I met in secret. She taught me how to hide my steps, how to encrypt my notes, how to watch for tails in the street. Together, we began piecing together the puzzle of the Hendersons' empire. And for the first time in decades, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was young. Purpose. But it came at a cost. One evening, as I walked home from meeting Anna, I noticed a black car parked across the street. The same car appeared again the next day near the grocery store. And again, a week later, by the church. Its windows were tinted, but I could feel the eyes on me. Michael knew my phone started ringing late at night. Silence on the other end. Notes were slipped under my door. "Stop digging." My neighbors whispered that strangers had been asking about me. Every step, every breath, I felt their grip tightening. I told Anna. She nodded grimly. They're watching you. But that means we're close. Once we leak this, they won't be able to touch you. The public will know the truth. But deep inside, I doubted it. The Hendersons weren't just a family, they were an institution. Powerful, untouchable. And I was just an old woman with shaking hands and a broken past. Yet, I couldn't turn back. Not anymore. And then it happened. One night, I returned home to find my apartment door ajar. My heart sank. Slowly, I pushed it open. Inside, everything looked the same except for one thing. On my dining table sat the folder Anna had given me. Open, empty, every page gone. And next to it, a single Polaroid photo. It was of Anna, tied to a chair, her eyes wide with fear. Written across the bottom in thick black ink were 4 words. You're next, Evelyn. The photograph of Anna haunted me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her terrified face. And those words scrawled in black ink. You're next, Evelyn. For 60 years, I had survived betrayal, humiliation, and silence. But this was different. Now, someone else was paying the price for my choices. Anna had stepped into my war, and the Hendersons had taken her as their warning. I wanted to crumble. God knows I wanted to. I was 60 years old, my hands unsteady, my body tired. I wasn't built for battles like this. But then I remembered every night I'd given to their empire. Every dream I had swallowed for their success. Every moment my name was erased. If I stayed silent now, Anna's suffering and mine would mean nothing, so I made a decision. I packed a small bag, gathered the copies of evidence I had hidden away, and left my apartment in the middle of the night. I didn't go to the police, they were already on the Hendersons' payroll. I didn't go to friends, I had none left. Instead, I walked straight into the belly of the beast, the Henderson estate. The mansion glowed against the night sky, guarded by iron gates and men in suits. I shouldn't have stood a chance. But age has its advantages. People don't see you when you're old. They underestimate you. I slipped past them, slow but deliberate, until I found myself outside Michael's office window. He was inside, pacing, his phone pressed to his ear. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. She won't make it out alive. The files are already gone. Anna won't talk. My blood boiled. I didn't wait for courage, I already had enough rage to move mountains. I pushed the window open, stepped inside, and placed the recorder I had hidden in my coat on his desk. His head snapped up, shock flickering across his face. Evelyn, what the hell are you doing here? My voice shook, but I held steady. I came to end this. Michael, no more lies. No more shadows. He laughed low, cruel. You think anyone will believe you? You're an old woman. You have nothing. I reached into my bag and pulled out the second set of documents. My insurance. The proof I had guarded like my own heartbeat. I tossed them onto the desk. I have everything. And if you touch Anna, if you touch me, this goes public. I've already made sure of it. For the first time, his smile faltered. His jaw clenched, his eyes darting toward the files. He knew. He had underestimated me. But then, his expression hardened. You think you've won? You'll leave this room in pieces before that ever sees daylight. I felt the tension tighten around us, the walls closing in. His men would be here in seconds. I had no strength, no weapon, no way out. But sometimes, survival isn't about strength, it's about timing. Sirens split the night, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Michael's face drained of color. Anna had been smarter than I thought. Before they took her, she must have triggered something, a signal, a message. The authorities were here. Not for me, but for him. The doors burst open, agents flooding the room. Michael shouted, cursed, tried to protest, but the evidence was already in motion. The files, the recordings, the money trail, it was over. They led him out in handcuffs, and I stood there, trembling, staring at the empire I had built with my own hands, collapsing into dust. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't, because victory doesn't give you back the years you lost. It doesn't erase the silence, the betrayals, the loneliness. All it gives you is truth, and truth is a heavy thing to carry when you're old and tired. I walked out of that mansion, into the cold night, the sirens fading behind me. Somewhere, Anna was alive, and that mattered. Somewhere, the world would finally know my name, and that mattered too. But as I stood on that empty road, 60 years weighing on my shoulders, one thought echoed louder than the rest. They celebrated millions in profit because of me, but they forgot the woman behind it all, and now, the world never will.